There is a version of yourself that you have spent years building. It is not necessarily a lie, but it is a construction, a carefully curated architecture of traits, reactions, and beliefs that you present to the world to ensure your safety. You may not even realize you are doing it. It happens in the milliseconds before you speak. It happens in the way you adjust your posture when you walk into a room. It happens in the stories you tell about your past, where you edit out the moments that make you look weak or uncertain or inconsistent. This is not about vanity. It is not about wanting to be admired, though that can be a part of it. At its core, this is about coherence. It is about the deep human need to be predictable to others, and perhaps more importantly, predictable to yourself. We all carry this invisible portrait. For some, the image is that of the strong one. This is the person who does not break, who absorbs the chaos of others, who always has a plan. For others, the image is the intellectual, the one who observes but does not feel, the one who stays above the messy fray of emotion. Some protect the image of the victim because even suffering offers an identity. It explains why things happen. It absolves responsibility. It creates a known world. Others protect the image of the carefree, the person who is never bothered, never attached, never truly invested. Whatever the specific contours of your image, the mechanism is the same. You have decided, consciously or not, that this specific version of you is the one that survives best in your environment. The problem arises not because we have a persona. Social functioning requires some degree of filtering, but because we eventually confuse the construction with the foundation. We begin to believe that the image we protect is the sum total of who we are. And the moment we believe that, we become terrified of anything that contradicts it. We stop living, and we start defending. Consider the last time someone offered you a piece of criticism. It might have been mild, perhaps even helpful, but if that criticism touched a structural pillar of your self-image, you likely didn't hear the words. You felt a physiological spike. Your heart rate increased. A flush of heat rose in your neck. Before your rational mind could engage, your defense system was already at war. If your image is, "I am the competent one," a suggestion that you made an error feels like an annihilation of your character. If your image is, "I am the kind one," a suggestion that you were selfish feels like a rewriting of your history. We defend these images with a ferocity that is disproportionate to the situation because we are not defending a fact. We are defending our stability. We are defending the story that tells us we are okay. This defense requires a tremendous amount of energy. This is the invisible exhaustion that many people feel at the end of a day where nothing physically demanding happened. It is the metabolic cost of repression. It takes effort to constantly monitor your own behavior to ensure it aligns with the script. It takes effort to suppress the parts of you that do not fit the narrative. The sudden anger in the calm person, the sudden fear in the brave person, the sudden desire for connection in the independent person. You are effectively carrying a shield that weighs as much as you do. You walk through your days holding this weight, adjusting it, polishing it, making sure it doesn't slip, all while trying to have conversations, do your work, and love your family. No wonder you are tired. The tragedy of this protection is that it creates a profound loneliness. When we are fully committed to the image, we prevent others from knowing us. They interact with the representative we have sent out. They love the strong one, or the smart one, or the funny one. They love the performance. And a quiet, corrosive doubt begins to settle in the back of your mind. If they saw the mess underneath, would they stay? Because you have hidden the messy parts to stay safe, you have inadvertently proven to yourself that the messy parts are unlovable. You have created a self-fulfilling prophecy where the only way to be loved is to remain hidden. You are surrounded by people, yet you are completely untouched. We do this because the alternative feels like death. To drop the image feels like stepping off a cliff. We fear that without this structure, we will dissolve into chaos. We fear that if we are not the successful one, we are nothing. We fear that if we admit we are hurt, we will be destroyed. This is a cognitive error, a trick of the mind that equates vulnerability with danger. In reality, the image is brittle. It is hard like glass, which means it can shatter. The reality of the human spirit is fluid. It can adapt, it can heal, it can change shape. But we choose the glass because it looks solid, forgetting that its rigidity is its greatest weakness. Over time, this commitment to the self-image begins to erode our capacity for growth. Growth, by definition, requires leaving something behind. It requires admitting that what we knew yesterday was incomplete. It requires clumsiness. But the self-image hates clumsiness. The self-image demands mastery. Therefore, we stop trying new things where we might look foolish. We stop asking questions that might reveal our ignorance. We stop apologizing because an apology admits a flaw. We become stagnant, trapped in a museum of our own making, dusting the exhibits of a personality that stopped evolving years ago. We become caricatures of ourselves, playing the same role with increasing desperation as the years go on. There is a specific kind of anxiety that comes from this maintenance. It is the anxiety of the imposter. This is not just about professional incompetence. It is existential. It is the gnawing sense that you are getting away with something, that you are fooling everyone, and that, at any moment, the curtain will fall. This anxiety is the direct result of the gap between the image and the reality. The wider the gap, the higher the anxiety. If you project total confidence but feel total insecurity, the energy required to bridge that gap is immense. You are building a bridge over a canyon every single morning, and deep down, you know that a bridge cannot stand on thin air forever. The cost is also paid in our relationships. Intimacy is, at its most basic level, the relaxation of defense. It is the act of putting the shield down. But if you have identified with your shield, you cannot put it down. You approach conflict not with the intent to understand, but with the intent to win, or at least to remain unblemished. You listen to respond, not to hear. You become slippery. When someone tries to pin you down on a behavior that hurt them, you deflect, you rationalize, you counterattack. You do this not because you are malicious, but because you are panicked. You are protecting the integrity of the image. The result, however, is that you push people away. You win the argument, you save face, but you lose the connection. You remain right, and you remain alone. There comes a point, often in the quiet middle of the night or in the aftermath of a failure, where the weight becomes unbearable. You look at the image you have protected and you feel a strange detachment. You realize it is not you. It is a costume that has grown too tight. The things you thought were essential to your identity, your intellect, your toughness, your victimhood, start to feel like burdens. This is not a crisis. This is the beginning of sanity. It is the cracking of the shell. It is painful, certainly. It feels like a loss, but it is the necessary precursor to emerging. This moment of realization is delicate. The temptation is to immediately build a new, better image, to trade the messy self for the improved self. But that is just swapping one mask for another. The real work, The quiet work is to tolerate the absence of an image. It is to sit with the discomfort of being undefined. It is to allow yourself to be a contradiction. You can be strong and terrified. You can be smart and completely confused. You can be loving and filled with resentment. These things can coexist because you are vast. The image is small. The reality is large. This process of dismantling the self-image is not a violent demolition. It is a slow peeling. It happens in the microscopic choices of daily life. It is the choice to say, "I don't know," when you are expected to have the answer. It is the choice to say, "That hurt me," instead of pretending you don't care. It is the choice to let a silence hang in the air without rushing to fill it with your personality. It is the choice to be boring. We are terrified of being boring, yet there is a profound peace in being unremarkable. When you do not have to perform, you can finally observe. When you are not obsessing over how you are perceived, you can finally perceive the world. We must understand that the people who truly love us are not in love with the image. They are in love with the person hiding behind it. They see the cracks even when we try to plaster over them. And often they love the cracks more than the smooth surface, because the cracks are where the light comes out. The cracks are where the humanity lives. By protecting the image, we are withholding the very thing that draws us to people, our flawed, authentic reality. We think we are hiding our ugliness, but we are actually hiding our essence. The fear that drives this protection is the fear of rejection. It is a primal fear rooted in our evolutionary past, where expulsion from the group meant death. But we are no longer in the wild. The dangers we face today are social and psychological. And ironically, the greatest protection against psychological harm is not a harder shell, but a softer self. A rigid tree breaks in the storm. A flexible reed bends and survives. When we are rigid in our self-image, every criticism breaks us. When we are fluid, when we accept that we are imperfect and in process, criticism passes through us. It might sting, but it does not shatter. We have nothing to defend because we are not claiming to be perfect. We are simply claiming to be human. This does not mean you stop trying. It does not mean you abandon discipline or values. In fact, it requires more discipline to be real than to be fake. It requires the discipline of honesty. It requires the courage to look in the mirror and see exactly what is there, without the filter of who you should be. It is a sobering look. It is a quiet look. It strips away the melodrama of "I am the worst" and the arrogance of "I am the best," leaving only the factual reality, "I am this." When you stop protecting the image, you release a vast reservoir of energy. The energy you used to prop up the facade is now available for living. You can listen better because you aren't preparing your defense. You can work better because you aren't paralyzed by the fear of looking incompetent. You can rest better because you aren't constantly auditing your own performance. The world becomes lighter. The colors become sharper. You are no longer watching a movie of your life. You are inhabiting it. There is a subtle form of pride in the self-image. It is the pride of thinking we can control how the world sees us. We believe that if we just act correctly, if we just say the right things, we can manipulate the perception of others. But we cannot. People see what they see. They feel what they feel. Our attempts to control their perception are largely futile. We are performing for an audience that is mostly thinking about themselves. Letting go of the image is an act of humility. It is admitting that we cannot control the narrative.
It is stepping down from the director's chair and taking a seat in the audience of our own lives, watching the scene unfold without needing to micromanage every frame.
This transition is not a destination. You do not wake up one day without an ego or a self-image. The instinct to protect yourself will always be there. It is a survival mechanism. The goal is not to kill the mechanism, but to notice it, to catch yourself in the act. When you feel that spike of defensiveness, you pause. You notice the bricklayer in your mind trying to build the wall higher, and you gently stop the hand. You take a breath. You choose the softer response. You choose the truth over the defense. It is a scary thing to be seen. It feels naked, but there is a specific kind of dignity in it. It is the dignity of a person who has nothing to hide, not because they are perfect, but because they have accepted their imperfections. They have integrated their shadow. They are whole. And a whole person is a powerful force. A whole person does not need to demand respect. They command it by their presence. They do not need to shout to be heard. They do not need to manipulate to be loved. They simply exist, grounded in the reality of who they are, not who they wish to be. The process of shedding the image is slow. It is often 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You will fall back into old patterns. You will find yourself posturing, bragging, or hiding. That is fine. That is part of it. The point is not to be perfect at being authentic. The point is to return again and again to the raw reality of the moment, to keep coming back to the center, to keep dropping the shield, even if you have to do it 1,000 times a day. As you walk this path, you will find that your relationships change. Some people may leave. They were attached to the image, and without it, the dynamic fails. Let them go. This is a natural pruning. But others will come closer. They will breathe a sigh of relief. Your vulnerability gives them permission to be vulnerable. Your lack of pretense invites them to drop their own masks. You create a space of truth around you, and in that space, real connection becomes possible. Real love becomes possible. The ultimate self-image you protect is a cage. It may be a gilded cage, adorned with trophies and praise, but it is a cage nonetheless. Outside of it, the air is colder, the ground is rougher, but you are free. You are free to make mistakes. You are free to change your mind. You are free to be incomplete. You are free to be a work in progress. And that is enough. You do not need the armor. You are built to withstand the weather of life without it. You are resilient by nature, not by construction. Trust that. Trust that the person underneath the image is capable of handling the world. Trust that you are worth knowing, not for the polish, but for the wood and the grain and the knots. We are all just walking each other home, as the old saying goes. And it is much easier to walk when we aren't carrying heavy shields. It is much easier to hold a hand when our fists aren't clenched in defense. So loosen the grip. Let the image slide. Let the light hit the cracks. You are still learning. You are still healing. You are still becoming. Still doing.